This is my story from a small town to the quantum world. It started with my childhood. And it started when I was considering computer science as my university major, and my mom looked dubious. You are a girl, won't you prefer something else, maybe literature? I didn't. I just finished a grammar school. In Italy, a grammar school is that school in which you study literature, Latin, Greek, philosophy, and very little math. And I wanted to know more. I wanted to know more about technology, about math, about sciences. And don't get me wrong, my mom, she wasn't just genuinely considering my natural inclination. That was small town society speaking through her. But of course, I don't assume bad intention, just a little bit of social myopia. So I graduated in computer science. We started as 6 women out of 80 people. And at the end of my master's degree, we were just two women out of 12 men. And it was kind of fun. This is very short, but okay, this brings me to my academic adolescence. When I was considering a PhD, as a natural consequence of my academic path, many of my mentors and even some of my friends were skeptical. You're a woman with a computer science master, and you can find a job here in the blink of an eye. Find a proper job, told me my grandma. Of course, a mediocre job in a small town with a wage that not even a PhD student in Italy has. And believe me, it's low. Nothing to say. I was curious, so I applied for a PhD around Europe and in the UK, as we have to say now. I have been accepted in most of the places I applied, but for, sentimental reason, I am human after all, my hometown won and I stayed there. I don't assume bad intentions in my mentors or friend words, not obviously in my grandma. Again, it is small town speaking through them. Small town means scarcity of jobs. You have to rush and get whatever mediocre you can find to secure your future, then probably get married and please become respectable. So I, of course, decided for a PhD, and I chose quantum computing as topic. As a computer scientist, I'm not a physicist, as a computer scientist, that was an exciting new area. And you have to remember that at the time, we were close to the quantum manifesto and the relapse of the whole quantum computing stuff. So I tried to pick an interesting topic, which was formal verification of quantum systems. Basically, what I did was I used the logic to create a model of my quantum system, of my quantum program. Then I use another logic, which is a temporal logic, to verify properties on my quantum program. And without having to test the program, just to apply some tricky graph theoretical stuff, you can decide whether your quantum program is free from errors or not. That was my PhD. I chose that topic in formal verification because my university was strong in theoretical computer science, so it was quite easy to find supervisors interested. To my initial delight, one of my supervisors was a woman. I thought I could have found an ally in a traditionally male-dominated area. To my disappointment, she was more interested in me babysitting her kids than carrying out proper research. Anecdote. This is an important anecdote, and it's a very sad one. I was once asked to join one of my supervisor's family on holiday. I was super enthusiastic. When you are a PhD, you feel like a duckling around at the mama duck, which is your supervisor. You follow your supervisor and you basically admire them. Then few days before the big day, the holiday, I was told that she was so grateful that I could join them to babysit her kids while she was hiking with their husband. I felt I didn't even know how. I was a professional. Of course, I was a girl, but it was not my duty to babysit my supervisor's kids. And so I didn't go. I need full disclosure from the beginning. Luckily, the other supervisor actually supervised me, and we were able to publish some interesting works. This ends the story of my PhD. So I decided to do a postdoc. And many relatives frowned, so I decided not to listen to anyone and to move abroad. I worked hard, but it wasn't easy at first. My university back home is quite good academically, but also quite unknown. And usually, at least until some time ago, some Italians believed that my hometown was in Austria. So my self-esteem, my academic self-esteem was quite low in the beginning. Then I realized that I was an hard worker. So I decided to quit the self-pity and rationalize. Unfortunately, there are still two main issues that people coming from small academic realities face. The first one is the imposter syndrome. Have you ever experienced the imposter syndrome? The imposter syndrome is when you apply and you get a job which is way higher than you consider yourself to deserve. Of course, you start thinking very bad things like, oh my God, I fault everyone. Even if my mentor is a genius, he might have seen something in me that doesn't exist and something like that. This is also, this is a bad phenomenon. And it might become a self-fulfilling prophecy because believing that you are an imposter conveys the idea that you are an imposter. So for all your life, you have been told that something is not for you, and you start to believe it, and this harms heavily your chances to make a good impression during an interview and during your whole life. Don't get me wrong. Everyone working in science, sooner or later, experiences this phenomenon. And to some extent, this is good, since it pushes us higher on the ladder. But when coming from minorities or small towns or small town realities, the imposter syndrome is a part of a depressing everyday life. This is the internal phenomenon that is worrying when coming from minorities and small towns reality. The other issue I noticed is more external than internal, but still heavily harms people's self-esteem and opportunities. In late 60s, late 60s, the psychologist Robert Merton identified a psychosocial phenomenon very common in science. He called this the Matthew effect of accumulated advantage. According to this effect, relatively unknown scientists or people whose alma mater is not as important as required get disproportionately little credit when compared with people of equal intelligence, but coming from big institutions or having a famous name behind. This can, to some extent, be justified. We are all human beings. Our memory is limited, so we have to use clues to choose between candidates. But consider that we might be missing the next Descartes or Pascal. While looking to maybe mediocre, we don't know, people whose only credit is the only one of having a big institution behind. Let me try to work an example with you. We have two MIT candidates. Some marks may be valedictorians, same publications. Who are gone in this game? You have to pick one of the two before the interview, so you haven't had the chance to actually sample their knowledge. Who are you gonna choose? Okay, this is difficult. I need to add a little bit more information. The first candidate is from Massachusetts, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, which is the first world-ranking university for computer science, whilst the other one is from Mississippi, which is the 800th world ranking for CS. It is still a very good university for other sciences, and maybe also for CS. We don't know. Rankings are not always the best indicator. Are you still going to interview both? Don't lie. Of course, this is us being humans. But the Matthew effect is These big institutions, of course, have higher reputation and attract more people, but are also very expensive, and they get more fundings. More fundings means more money means better labs, more research means more papers, more outcomes, more articles. And this is a vicious circle. You can just turn the arrows on the other side, and that's another vicious circle. You know, MIT is also very expensive. But this didn't happen in my personal experience. I saw that happening, and I was afraid of this. My personal experience it ended well. I shot to the moon, literally. I applied for dream positions, working with famous and brilliant people, and I have been accepted. This is mostly due to the fact that the quantum community is very young, and the people composing it is welcoming and enlightened, both in academia and in industry. The first job I applied to, and I have been accepted, was in Cambridge Quantum Computing, and I had been interviewed by one of the people whose paper I was using for my PhD thesis. So I was just looking at some kind of god, academically speaking, and he told me, "Oh yes, we decided to hire you." I was over the moon and like, "Oh my god!" But I come from Udine. I'm very tiny academically, but you know, quantum computing gave me the chance to shine, and they basically accompanied me throughout my path. Then I decided to apply for an academic position at UCL, and yes, again, you have to work hard to obtain things. But once you have a big name on your shoulders, it's just easier. We want this kind of enlightenment that we have in the quantum world to last, because we don't want, as I told you before, we don't want to miss the next top scientist because their institution is unknown. And of course, we don't want to regret snobbing some minority just for some kind of academic bias, because we can't afford that. If we want to be inclusive, diverse, and fair, we have to do more, but also if we want to be more competitive. So this is the story of how quantum computing changed my life. And just as a wrap up, let's remember two main things. As women, we were the rather unknown scientists. And if no one would have given us the chance to shine, going against the bias that medieval perception inevitably inscribed, we wouldn't be hosting such brilliant meetings. And maybe we should ask someone to sign our articles to have a chance to be accepted. But also, so we have to be enlightened and open-minded. And as a single person, what I advise, whether you come from a big institution or from a very tiny one, you have to work hard, always. It always pays back, but also be confident. Because be also bold if needed, but working hard, being confident, and being intellectually, and some amount of intellectual humility always does the trick. Of course, again, as women, we have the social responsibility to be more inclusive, because we weren't supposed to be included in the science domain at first, and now we are here talking about science and being professionals and top-level professionals in science. So, as usual, awareness of a bias is the first step to avoid it. And thanks to the quantum domain, I'm here as well. And also thank you to my colleagues and to my superiors. And that's it. I hope that you liked my talk. And thank you again for participating.
Thank you, Linda. Thank you so much. And I think you brought up a wonderful point about the imposter syndrome. And I actually I can't do a poll, but I would love to see in the chat if any of you have felt like, are you an imposter? Or if if you feel that way too, I think we all feel that way. And I think that's one of the reasons why we work so hard to be better is because we always feel like we need to do more, we need to be better. And I think that's a good quality. So I hope that makes sense. But I think I always like feeling a little stretched and a little challenged because I feel like it makes me a better person. And I like to not force myself, but I like to push myself to learn more and be better. And I think that's a common quality for all of us that have joined this event is we're trying to be better, we're trying to learn more, we're trying to meet new people, we're just trying to just be better. And I think that's a tremendous sign of success. So thank you, Linda. I also love that Linda has gone from a startup to academia, and she's following her own muse, which I think is really important. And, one of the career advices I'll say is, if you want to try something, try it. It's not permanent. It's not forever, but you sometimes need to try something on to see if it's you or not. And I think that we all have to try new things. So I congratulate you and can't wait to hear more about what you're doing at UCL. And I know you're still helping us at CQC, so we appreciate that as well.